300,000 years ago, we were nobody. Just another species of primate wandering the African savanna, competing with lions for scraps. We had fire, basic tools, language, but we were nomads, never staying in one place, never building anything permanent, never leaving a mark. For 290,000 years, that's all we were. Then 10,000 years ago, everything changed. We invented civilization. And in the blink of an evolutionary eye, we went from hunting with spears to splitting atoms, from cave paintings to the internet, from tribes of 50 to cities of 20 million people. This is the story of how we built the modern world, what it cost, and whether we can survive what we've created. The transformation began in the Fertile Crescent, the region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq, around 10,000 BCE. Humans discovered they could plant seeds, harvest crops, and store surplus food. This was the agricultural revolution, and it changed the game completely. For the first time, we did not have to follow animal herds or forage constantly. We could stay in one place. Permanent settlements emerged. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. But agriculture had a dark side. Skeletons from early farming communities show something shocking. The average height of men dropped from 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 3 inches. Women shrank from 5 feet 3 inches to 5 feet. Why? Because farmed grains provided fewer nutrients than the diverse diet of hunter-gatherers. Farmers worked harder, ate worse, and lived shorter lives than their nomadic ancestors. They also got sick more. Living in close quarters with animals introduced diseases such as smallpox, measles, and tuberculosis, which hunter-gatherers never faced. Civilization made us weaker. But it made us powerful in a different way. Surplus food meant not everyone had to farm. Some people could specialize. You got priests who managed temples and interpreted the gods. You got merchants who traded goods across regions. You got artisans who made pottery, tools, and jewelry. You got soldiers who protected the surplus from raiders. And at the top, you got kings who controlled everything. This created the first true social hierarchy. The world was no longer egalitarian bands of relatives. It was structured inequality, rulers and ruled, rich and poor, free and enslaved. Around 4000 BCE, the Sumerian city of Uruk in Mesopotamia reached 50,000 people, the largest human settlement ever built at that point. To manage a city that size, the Sumerians invented writing, not for poetry or stories, but for accounting. They needed to track grain stores, tax payments, and trade deals. Cuneiform, wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets, was born. Writing changed everything. It allowed knowledge to outlive individuals. Laws could be written down and enforced consistently. History could be recorded. Power could be centralized through bureaucracy. In 1772 BCE, the Babylonian king Hammurabi carved 282 laws onto a 7-foot stone slab. This was the basis of the legal systems we use today. Hammurabi's code wasn't about equality. It codified inequality. Law 196 said if you destroy the eye of a free man, they destroy your eye. But Law 199 said if you destroy the eye of a slave, you only pay half the slave's price. A noble's bone was worth more than a commoner's, which was worth more than a slave's. Civilization created order, but it also created official systems of oppression. Then empires began to rise. Persia, under Cyrus the Great, in 550 BCE. Alexander the Great's conquest of the known world by 323 BCE. Rome's dominance of the Mediterranean by the 1st century CE. Genghis Khan's Mongol horde controlling territory from China to Europe by 1200 CE. Every empire followed the same pattern. A charismatic leader with military genius unites fragmented tribes or city-states. They conquer neighbors using superior tactics or technology. They establish trade routes and spread culture. They reach their peak. Then they decline. Internal corruption, external threats, failure to adapt. The average empire lasts about 250 years before collapsing or transforming into something else. Rome is the textbook example. It started as a small city-state in 753 BCE, became a republic, and then an empire controlling 3 continents. At its height under Emperor Trajan in 117 CE, Rome had 50 million subjects. It built roads, aqueducts, and the Colosseum. It spread Latin, law, and engineering across Europe. But by 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire had fallen. Why? Overexpansion stretched resources thin. Emperors became corrupt and incompetent. The military relied on mercenaries who had no loyalty. Barbarian invasions exploited weakness. Rome did not fall because of one thing. It fell because successful empires plant the seeds of their own destruction. But Rome's fall did not end civilization. It transformed. The Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire, lasted another 1,000 years. The Catholic Church preserved knowledge through the Dark Ages. Islamic scholars in Baghdad's House of Wisdom translated Greek philosophy and advanced mathematics, creating algebra and algorithms. In China, dynasties rose and fell in a predictable cycle, the mandate of heaven. When floods, famines, or earthquakes hit, it meant the emperor had lost heaven's favor. Rebellion would follow. A new dynasty would rise. The cycle repeated for 3,000 years. Then, in the 1760s, something unprecedented happened. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain. Humans discovered how to harness coal, steam power, and machinery to amplify productivity 1,000-fold. Factories replaced farms as the center of economic life. Cities exploded in size. London went from 1 million people in 1800 to 6.7 million by 1900. But industrialization created new horrors. Children worked 16-hour days in coal mines. Workers breathed toxic air in textile mills. Entire populations were displaced as machines replaced labor. Yet the pace kept accelerating. Electricity, cars, airplanes, antibiotics, nuclear weapons, computers, the internet. In just 250 years, we went from horse-drawn carriages to Mars rovers. The global population exploded from 1 billion in 1800 to 8 billion today. We terraformed the planet, clearing forests, damming rivers, and pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere at a rate that is triggering mass extinction and climate collapse. Here's the paradox. Despite 2 world wars, the Holocaust, Stalin's purges, Mao's famines, and countless genocides, the 20th century was statistically the least violent era in human history, per capita. In hunter-gatherer societies, roughly 15% of people died violently. In the 20th century, despite 100 million war deaths, only 3% of the global population died from violence. Centralized states with monopolies on force have made life paradoxically safer, even as weapons became exponentially more destructive. But we've created a new problem. For the first time in history, we've built a truly global civilization. 5.4 billion people are connected to the internet. Supply chains span continents. A pandemic in China reaches every country within weeks. We depend on systems so complex no single person understands them. Financial markets, power grids, and global shipping all run on fragile networks that could collapse from cyber attacks, natural disasters, or cascading failures. And we're facing existential threats our ancestors never imagined. Climate change is making parts of the planet uninhabitable. Artificial intelligence could surpass human intelligence within decades. Nuclear arsenals can end civilization in an afternoon. Synthetic biology could engineer pandemics worse than COVID-19. We have godlike power with Stone Age brains. The story of human civilization is the story of solving one problem and creating 10 new ones. Agriculture solved hunger, but created inequality and disease. Writing solved knowledge transfer, but enabled centralized oppression. Empires solved fragmentation, but created cycles of conquest and collapse. Industrialization solved scarcity, but created pollution and climate crisis. The Internet solved communication, but created misinformation and digital tribalism. Every civilization before us rose, peaked, and fell. The question is whether we're smart enough to break the pattern. We have advantages they didn't. We can see the whole arc of history. We understand the mistakes. We have technology that could solve problems or destroy us. The next 50 years will determine whether Homo sapiens builds a sustainable planetary civilization or becomes another extinct species that couldn't adapt fast enough. The history of civilization isn't over. We're still writing it. The question is how the story ends. If you want more deep dives into the forces that shaped humanity, subscribe to Epic Rundown for a new historical documentary every week.